I'm Sonia Gonzalez, and I am from the Whosoevers. I serve alongside Ryan Reese and a bunch of amazing other people that just go and share their testimonies about how God has came in and changed their lives from once what they were and is bringing them to be a new creation. So I kind of was asked to share a little bit about me and just my testimony and where God has met me where I was. I am always used to being a background person, so being up front with you guys right now, if I pace back and forth, just forgive me because I do that often when I'm nervous. So I'll go ahead and just start off a little bit about me. My upbringing, I was raised in a family of four. There was 4 kids, and it was kind of chaotic, I guess you could say. My parents would fight a lot. They got married at a young age, so they would fight, and my dad used to beat my mom. And so we'd always have like family drama where we'd have to move a lot of the time, and just we would run a lot. That's basically what we would do. When we'd get in situations, we would just kind of run from them because we didn't know what else to do. And so, like I said, my mom was very young. She was probably like 15 when she had me. My dad was 18, and they both came from very families with a lot of turmoil in them. So they were just 2 people who came from messed up families trying to raise a family of their own. So my idea of God was he was up in heaven, far, far away, and he didn't really have any interaction with me. He didn't really, he was just more so looking down at me and watching, but he'd had no interaction with me. So that was kind of my idea of God. My mom, because she had kids at a young age, she felt like if she had missed out a lot in her party times and whatnot. So when, by the time I was probably around 10 o'clock, when 10 o'clock, I was not ever 10 o'clock, guys. I was 10 years old. The divorce was finally final. And so she started partying more and, of course, looking for a boyfriend and stuff, and just enjoying what she thought she needed to do, enjoying her life. And so I would see her frequently crawling on the floor after coming from a party, and she'd just be plastered drunk, and I would just kind of watch over her. And of course, as she's out partying, I'm with the kids and just making sure the house is clean and just taking care of them, being a good big sister. I forgot to mention I'm the oldest of them. So a lot of the responsibility fell on me. And I think a lot of it was, I felt like some of the divorce was my fault, just because I think that's kind of typical with kids. When you go through a divorce, you feel like if you're the one, if you could have done something, if you could have said something, if you could have been a better person, a better kid, that your parents might not have gotten the divorce. So that's kind of what my mindset was, I could have done something to fix this. And so I was trying to help my mom so she can party and do her thing and whatnot. And so she had different relationships, different guys were living with us, and not at the same time, but at different occasions. And so she, and a lot of the times, like I said, when she was raised up, she was in very, there was a lot of drama happening in her life. So it was almost like she was used to that, And so when she'd get into relationships, these guys would come from the party scene and everything like that. And so a couple of them would beat her. And there was, that's just kind of what I seen. There was this one time where it really stuck out in my head where she had just gotten beaten up and her nose was broken and everything. And I came over to her and she was crying in her bed. And I came to her and I was like, Mom, I love you. I'm here for you. And she was just like, I know, but you can't give me the kind of love that these guys can give me. And so that kind of I guess that had a huge impact on me, because I felt like, is that me? I felt like if, I knew that. After she said that, I was like, she's right. I'm just a kid. I can never love her the way that another guy could love her, or a guy could love her, And so I kind of I don't know, it really hurt me. And so I felt like with all that drama and whatnot, I started kind of doing the same thing. You know, it's almost like you almost become what you don't like sometimes, you know, like you see, like that's what I seen. So when I was over there seeing everything that she went through, I was kind of like in my head, I was saying, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be like her. But then as the years progressed, you know, I started, you know, seeing all this stuff. I started getting really kind of like shutting down my emotions. And so what I would do is I started to cut myself occasionally. And that helped me to kind of get control. Like, you know, like with all that pain that I was feeling with my family and everything that was going on, my dad really wasn't too much in the picture. He was giving us money, but he wasn't really there. And my mom was out partying, so I had no control over that. So what I would do is when I'd cut, I would tell myself, you know, I can't, there's no pain, there's no pain, there's no pain. And then eventually it's like I shut down, like I was just checking out, another form of like running away, you know? And then I also started having a relationship early when I was about 15 years old. I got a relationship with my boyfriend and we moved really super quick. I lost my virginity at 15. And so we dated the whole time through high school, but in between that, he came from a crazy home too. So it's kind of like, you know, he thought he was always jealous and he thought I was always going to cheat on him or something. And I thought I was in love. So it's almost like, you know, he would say things almost like just more of like negative kind of like, why is that guy checking you out? Or, you know, why are you wearing this? Or why are you looking for attention like that? And so I always felt like I was doing something wrong. So, so I always just tried to keep him like calm or whatever, you know, and, but inside it was hurting me because I was thinking, well, I just need to like keep myself like just quiet, you know, this is my spot. I can't upset him. And so that kind of built up, and over time, having my dad being so super controlling, because even though he wasn't with my mom, he was still very controlling. Like we couldn't even choose what food we wanted to eat if we went out to eat. He got us exactly what we wanted. If I wanted a Coke, I was getting a Pepsi because he only drank Pepsi. So, so that's kind of how that went. So I was being controlled by my dad, and I was being controlled by my boyfriend, and sleeping with him, you know, and he was very much just for the sex. So it was just kind of like emotion, you know what I mean? Like it really didn't have anything. So I had tried to commit suicide a couple of times. And of course that didn't work. And I'm thankful for God for that. But another thing that I started getting into was tarot cards. And with the tarot cards, that was another way that I can have control over the things, because I noticed when I started laying out the tarot cards and doing them on my friends that things would actually come true. Like I had done a reading on one of my friends, and it said that she was going to have great joy and then great sorrow. Well, she ended up she was young and promiscuous too, and she was in a relationship, and she was going to go get her Depo-Provera shot. And for some reason, I felt inside, I was like, you shouldn't go, you should get a test. And she didn't end up getting tested. Well, she was pregnant. And because of getting the shot, she had a miscarriage. And so that was, you know, she would have been very happy getting pregnant, but then, you know, the great sorrow was that she lost the baby. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the enemy can't see into the future, but what he can do is he can make you believe that it's fact. You know, he's not like that was the future, obviously, but that wasn't the future for necessarily her life. Do you know what I mean? Like it created doubt inside of her. It took almost like it was in her mind already. And so she was already thinking about it. So there was times like that. And then again, we moved to a different place, and I would also do a form of, I don't know if it's like a seance or like more of like a meditation, but I would basically call spirits and ask them to show me things and stuff like that. So I kind of dabbled a lot with that. I wasn't watched after a lot, so I'd watch whatever movies I wanted. I did basically what I wanted. I was the adult, so I made my calls. I was in control. And so that's kind of the things that I got involved in. And so going into what I ended up doing is with all the chaos, again, I was raised from a runner, my mom ran away. So the only thing that I knew to get away from all this craziness, because I knew I wasn't happy, I was hopeless. So what I did is I moved away. I lived in a small town in Oregon, and I moved to Phoenix where I knew no one. And I figured I can start over. I can get away. I can be who I want to be. I can find out who I am. And so I went to college, and there wasn't so much of just me finding myself. It was just more like, I'm going to drink a 40 before class and get high during breaks. So I guess. So that's kind of what I did through school. I would, drink a 40 and during break and get high most of the time and smoke shrooms and acid, and there's a lot of that crazy stuff that I did. Just drink a lot mostly and just make really bad decisions and put myself in really bad decisions or bad situations. But and of course, so with the relationship wise, I broke up with my boyfriend and just had flings. And for me, it was just more so the reason why I had the flings is so there was no strings attached. There was nothing that held me accountable to anybody. I didn't belong to anybody. I didn't need to, give an answer to anybody. I just did what I wanted. So, but inside my heart, obviously, I knew that it wasn't right. Inside my heart, I felt like I shouldn't do the things I'm doing. I mean, these are people's feelings. These are people's lives, and I could have gotten hurt in many different ways. But now, obviously, looking back, I know that God's hand was protecting me and that he was watching after me, even though I didn't know it and I didn't know him. So basically, what ended up happening is I met this guy over there, and his name, well, he's my husband right now, and he actually, go figure that. He actually was the one who kind of called me out. He was never the type of person, he never drank, he never smoked, he never cussed. I called him a liar a long time because I didn't believe that there could be anybody who did not possess any of those things. But I live with him now, and he really does not cuss and do all those things, so it's true. But, for him, he was more of he was like my best friend, He would listen to me and be there. And when I was going through those crazy situations that I put myself in, he was always the one to kind of come save me, I guess. And so he would ask me, obviously he'd be there when I was getting drunk and when I was getting high. And one day he asked me, he was like, do you ever think that there's anything bigger than you? Do you think that God cares or anything like that? And to me, it was it sounds crazy, but I was like, I've never thought of that. I've never thought of it. I'm just living my life, doing what I'm doing, and things are happening in my life. So no, I never really thought about that. But that, I believe, was a little seed that was planted inside my head. Just with him just saying that, it was kind of I never thought of that. Maybe there is something bigger and something my life could have some kind of purpose. So that's kind of when I started to kind of just hang out with him more, and I trusted him. And so finally, I started hanging out with him, and then it was coming close to graduation, and he was like, I'm going to move to California. If you want to come with me, you can. But if you don't, then, I don't want you to write me. I don't want you to call me. I don't want any connection with you because I love you and I can't be your friend. And so he basically gave me an ultimatum. I was very offended that he gave me an ultimatum because people don't give me ultimatums. So he left for Christmas break or something, and I was just kind of oh, this guy. And he wouldn't answer my phone calls while he was gone the whole time. It was 2 weeks, but it felt like forever. And I was just oh, this guy, how dare he not answer my phone calls? I'm calling, hello. And so anyways, it gave me a lot of time to talk and just think about it, you know, think about what my life would be without him. And I couldn't imagine my life without him. I couldn't imagine not calling him if something happened, you know, or telling him just the silly things. And I never really have interesting news, but, you know, it was just somebody who actually cared about me, you know, not about me to help them babysit the kids or me as to what I can do for them physically, you know, or anything like that. It was just me. And so I was like, man, he came back and I told him, I was like, oh, why didn't you answer my calls? And he was just like, well, I didn't. I'm sorry. I was busy. And so finally I was just kind of like, well, I think I love you, so I think I'll move back with you. So that's kind of how that all started. And again, he never pressured me or talked to me. Like, he never preached at me about God. He opened it up, and then that was basically it. So anyways, I moved over here with him. We moved in with his parents, who are very connected in the church, very God-fearing people that I respect very, very much. And they had one rule, and that rule was no having sex at my house, right? This is a God-fearing home. You know, for me and my house, we serve the Lord. And, well, we didn't have sex at their house, but we had sex other places. And we ended up getting pregnant. And so when we got pregnant, we were excited. We told his parents and everything, and they were happy for us. They supported us and everything. But inside, I felt like just torn because I didn't have anything for the kid. And so I really didn't, inside, I was like, God, I don't want this baby because I can't afford it. I can't provide for it. So I'm not ready. And my husband's like in the other ear, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have a baby. I'm so excited. You're gonna be a mommy and I'm gonna be a daddy. And I'm just like, I can't hear that right now. You know, I was so overwhelmed, so scared. And so, well, we ended up having a miscarriage. And so with that, that really broke my husband's heart and my heart as well. But I think it was just, to me, the baby already, like I already had said in my mind I couldn't, you know, like figure out what to do with the baby. And so it was just more so like I started feeling bad, like I did it, you know, like so there was somehow, some way that I did it. And so I carried a lot of that guilt in me for a long time. And then finally, church seemed like a really good option at that time because I really needed God then, you know. I was really broken. And so I ended up going to church and giving my life over to God. And I got involved in the church, and I read my Bible, and I did everything that they told me to do. They said, get baptized, I got baptized. They said, read your Bible, I read my Bible. You know, I'd fall asleep to my Bible, and like an audio version of it. And so I'm just doing everything, and then got plugged in, was working in the children's ministry, everything. And what ended up happening is I was in the Word and everything like that, but then I started making those little compromises of like, I got a new job. And this job, you know, obviously it's a secular job. And my husband was away a lot. I was alone, things like that. I'm sure you guys can kind of guess where I'm going with this. So my husband would travel, and I would be at work and I'd be alone. We'd have situations or whatever. I made friends with a guy friend, and he would listen to me and he'd hear what I'd say, and I'd complain to him if me and my husband had a fight or whatever, and he would listen, and he cared. Again, somebody who cared. And so what ended up happening is my husband, he's like, I don't know how God has given him grace upon my life, seriously, because I put him through a ton of stuff, and he still actually trusts me and loves me, which I don't understand, but, you know, so he would trust me, and we'd go out, like me and the team would go out every Friday, and he allowed that. He was fine. He knew I would go out with the team. I never drank because I'm a Christian, so I can't do that, but you know, I made the little compromise of one day he asked me if I can, that one guy that I was telling you about, he asked me if I can go and talk to him alone. And so okay, no harm in that. He's a friend. So I go out and talk to him, and we're away from everybody and everything, and he ends up telling me that he likes me a lot and that he would like to kiss me. And I'm like, oh, I'm a married woman. You can't kiss me on the lips, but you can kiss me on the cheek. So that's, for whatever reason, I'm just being real with you guys. Don't ask me why I thought that, why it was okay. But so he did that, and then it ended up we started hanging out more alone. And my husband knew he would allow me to go out, but he didn't know what I was doing. But he was like, knows that this guy's my friend, and I didn't have many friends. And so because all my family was back in Oregon, and so we ended up like just hanging out with each other. And I never had sex with him, but I would always, I kind of like, I realized that my heart was always for him. It's like I gave my heart. I had an emotional affair on my husband because I gave my heart to this man. And so to me, that's, I didn't realize it at the time, but it's the same thing. You don't have to have sex with a person to have an affair on your spouse. All you have to do is just give your heart to another man, set your eyes on someone else. Just the same thing with Jesus, having that relationship with Jesus. So with that, when I started coming home, that didn't last very long, but during that time, I would notice that I'd start coming home and I'd be really sick, and I'd like almost fall out of his truck trying to get home, and I didn't understand why. Well, it ended up with all those doors that I told you that I opened when I was younger, even though I was walking with Christ in the beginning, when I started making those compromises, I was veering away from Christ. I was walking away from him. So in the Bible, it says that if you abide in me, I abide in you, right? I wasn't abiding in Christ. I was doing what I wanted again. And so I walked away from him. And so that opened me up. I was no longer under that hedge of protection. I was on my own. I was, fair game. And so what I didn't know that happened is I actually ended up, I went and told one of my Christian friends, and because I had read in the Bible that if you were to confess your sins to one another, like that's what you're supposed to do. So I went and told her. We had dinner together, and she basically was asking me what's going on. I told her everything that was going on, and while I was talking to her, I guess I started to smirk, almost like having this like a prideful kind of like boasting in what I was doing. And so she kind of looked at me, and I guess I had this crazy look, but she went ahead and I don't know, she ended up taking me to her house, and I guess I was possessed. And so she took me to her house, and I started manifesting. And basically what the manifesting means, it's when the spirit starts acting out. So if you remember in Ephesians 6:12, it says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness and high places. So with all that stuff that I had done, yes, I had been set free and forgiven from that. But again, like I said, I walked away and I removed myself from abiding in Christ. And so that's where she started praying for me. And what ended up happening at her house was I was crawling around, kind of like just saying stuff that I normally wouldn't say. What it felt like to me was like Sonia was in the back seat, and whatever this was in the front seat, in control. And so I left out the part that my husband did find out about the affair. And we went through that. I dealt with it. And so that was kind of already the part where I was at. And since he was raised in the church, he knew what it meant about possession. He had seen people who had been through that and been delivered. And so I had called him and told him before I lost control. I told him about what was going on. And so she was praying for me, but little did I know, she called a pastor, and I guess he had the hots for her. And so the Spirit knew this, I guess, because it was like, oh, look at her legs. Isn't she nice? Like, did you see her hair? And just like little things to try to distract him from what he came for, the purpose that he came for. The purpose was to pray over me and to deliver the Spirit, right? Like, that's what his purpose was. But to kind of hinder him away from it, that's what the thing would say. And so I didn't change form or anything, but my face, I guess, did change. And so she prayed over me. Finally, after a while of praying, like occasionally I would get thrown around and kind of go into kind of convulsions and stuff like that. There was just crazy stuff that happened. But there was this one time I remember I crawled over to her bookshelf and I took off a book because I was praying in my head too. And I was like, God, why is this happening? What's going on? And then my hand flipped through in the book and pointed down, and the word that it pointed to was pride. And so there was something that obviously I turned into myself, my old self, that I was cleaned, that I was redeemed from. I went back to my old sin like a dog to its vomit. And so basically that night I was there for until about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then it calmed down and I went back home. And the next day, of course I told my husband about everything, and then the next day I was sitting in my bed. I don't know what time it is or was or anything like that, but I was sitting in my bed and I started feeling this intense anger coming over me. And I knew from the previous night, that, it was probably happening again. And so I was very scared. So I told my husband, get everybody out of here, get everybody out. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know I don't know what to expect, obviously, from what I had seen or what I had went through the previous night. And so he got everybody out of the house, and it was just me and him. And then I sat up in the bed, and the next thing I know, I'm just breathing heavy, like I said, with this intense rage, this anger that's just overtaking everything inside of me. And I'm just, same thing, I guess I jumped down and started crawling down my hallway and just cussing up a storm. So my husband called his parents, and they called a pastor. That was our pastor at the time. And while I was there waiting for his family to come, I wasn't really in the driver's seat. So what I remember, his mom and dad walked up, and from our house, you couldn't really see outside. But for whatever reason, as soon as his parents walked up, I said in a really creepy voice, we have company. And so I don't know, for me, it even creeped me out because I can hear this stuff and I'm seeing it. So I'm just kind of like, whoa, who's here, And then I see his parents walk in, and they're praying over me and just trying to keep me in control. And I'm over here throwing stuff, trying to hit his dad, and I'm thinking, I don't want to hit this man. I love this man, but throwing shoes, cussing at him, saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And then finally the pastor comes, and same thing. It was kind of like, there's another person or something crazy that I said. And so he comes in and he says, he starts talking to it and says, why are you here? And basically it answered saying that because she wants me here and she needs me. And so he asked it, what's its name? And it said like a bunch of numbers or whatever. And anyways, so they were praying over me, and he was saying that, Sonia, if you want it to leave, you need to tell it to leave. You need to ask Jesus into your heart, and you need to want it to leave. So that lasted for hours, and again, throwing myself around. I think that there was a time that they had to protect my head because I almost smashed it against our coffee table. And so we just did that, and finally it would go back and forth. Like I would come in and I'd come, go back out. And so I just started, even when I was trying to pray, he was telling me, say the name of Jesus. Jesus, there is power in the name of Jesus. And I'd try to say Jesus, but it'd come out stuttered. Like I'd just be like, it was almost like my tongue was held. It didn't want to be, it was like restricted from me. And so finally, like I said it, I was like, Jesus, please save me, help me, take this from me. And after a long time of saying that and just fighting through that, finally I heard that thing say, I see there's angels coming. And then as soon as that happened, I didn't see it with my natural eye, but I guess that it's seen it. And then I let out this crazy scream, like just almost like this blood-curdling scream, and then my body just went limp. And that is when God set me free from that. And so I remember asking or telling the pastor was like, this is good, Sonia, this is good. And I'm like, you're crazy. This is not good. Did you just see what happened? Like, did you not see what I went through? But what he told me is that God set you free. And so that you can share that with everybody else. And, just to think of God seeing and wanting to use me blew my mind. I didn't love myself. So how could a God knowing way more, like others, I could portray a picture, I can have it all together. I could have everything in order. I could be a good Christian wife. I could be this party girl or whatever. I could do that. But I only showed you what I wanted to show you, But there was nothing that I could hide from God. God seen everything that I did. And he still loved me. He still forgave me. He still saved me. And he still wanted to use me. And that blew my mind away. So I guess right now where I am is, like I said, I'm working with the whosoevers. And the whosoevers go out and just speak purpose into the lives of the youth with some of the things that we came from. So art and music, different things like that. So it's amazing to see firsthand what God is doing in the lives of other people. We go out to the lost, the hurting, the broken, the people who were like me. And we say, we're here for you and we care. Because I think a lot of that I went through is I didn't think anybody cared. I didn't think that anybody noticed me. And I felt like I was just alone. So that's what I do right now. And this is me now. And I learned a very valuable lesson that I will stay very close to Jesus Christ now. I will not veer away again. All right. I'm like... So I think that's it. I just wanted to, I don't know if I still have time, but I just wanted to encourage you, anybody who's here and you feel left alone or anything, I hope that, you know that God, your creator, has a plan for you and he has a purpose for you. And we'll be available up front afterwards, all the speakers. So if you need prayer, please feel free to come forward. All right. Thanks, guys.